What's up everybody? Back with the follow-up from my last NCBike up to speed video. I was at NCBike last weekend, and by working on the things I went over in that video, I was able to find about a second and a half with a new personal best of 131.186, as you can see up here. I'm going to briefly show you how I found the time versus my previous best last year of a 132.641. Then I'll go into what I'm going to work on next year when I go back to the track. So from the apex of 1 to about the apex of 5, despite a clutch slipping issue, the red line is my 31.1 and the blue line is my 32.6. I was able to find about 0.266 seconds, about a quarter of a second, and then thanks to a geometry change I made on the bike, I changed the dog bones in my rear. At some point, I think when I first got the bike 3 years ago, I put in the wrong dog bones, which made my rear extremely tall, despite the shock length being correct, and it made my trail very low in the front. And because of that, I was always having the feeling of the front end being nervous. So by lowering the rear effectively, it gave me more trail, more rake in the front. It went from about 90 millimeters of trail to 100, and it gave me less anti-squat in the rear. So I have a lot more edge grip now, more feeling, better entries, better exits, pretty much better everything. So quarter second from 1 to 5, and then from the apex of 5 to the apex of 8, I found another 0.616 seconds, and then from the apex of 8 to the apex of 11, I found another 0.672 seconds, which is most of the time difference. If you can see here, I have more speed coming out of 1 and out of 2, and then not quite as much speed coming out of 3 because of the clutch issue, and then more speed going into 5 and later brakes and better roll speed. Going into 6, I had better roll speed. My minimum speed was about 2 miles per hour faster, and I got away from that and hit a higher top speed between 6 and the bowl portion of 7, which was, instead of 78, I got up to 82, which is the best time you can get because that's while you're straight up and down. Kind of messed up the bowl portion of 7 going in, but luckily I cleaned it up and got a good exit going through the chicane. So while last year's me is still slowing down, I'm accelerating away. And then another big chunk of time I got was 9 and 10. There's more roll speed in 9, better exit out of 8, which led to more roll speed in 9, and then a better exit out of 9 into 10, and later brakes into 10. But unfortunately, I slightly lost the rear, so I had to roll off a bit and then got back on it. And then I also started using the brakes going into 11, which allowed me to keep the throttle on while I tipped in instead of rolling off or going to neutral throttle. The only problem is I got my slow point a tad late and didn't get to full throttle quite as good as I should have. And as you can see, the blue line starts to get away from the red line, and the time compare, which is down here, goes from 0.6 ahead of my previous best, and then by the time we get to the finish line, it's 0.455. So a low 31, I'll take it. Next year the plan is to get in the 30s, and long-term goal I'd like to get in the 29s. So now I'm going to go over myself versus the pro rider running a 29.4 and see where I can gain even more time. Now we have myself versus the pro rider. He is the red line. He's on a Kramer 690 running a 129.389, and I'm still on my SV650. He is the red line, I'm the blue line. This trace right here is GPS speed. This is the absolute value of lean angle, so it's only positive. And this is brake G's, which is I use as a faux brake. I'm going to break this down in chunks. So the first chunk I'm going to go over, these aren't in order of importance, just order of the track. From the apex, or let's say the slow point of turn 1 to the slow point of turn 5, whereabouts. Coming out of turn 1, I'm doing pretty good. I roll off a little more than him as I tip into 2, but I also grab 2 downshift, so it might just be that because I'm pretty sure I'm on the throttle stop. And then as we get into going into 3, I roll off even more. I remember this lap, I was working on keeping it on the throttle stop pretty much this whole time, but this particular lap, for some reason, I thought I was going to run off, so I rolled off a hair and had to gather it back up. And as you can see, his speed trace just starts getting away from me. Also, my transition is a hair late. If I can get from the right side of the tire out of 2 to the left side of the tire, going into 3 faster, it'll set me up and make turn 3 just a long straightaway. Yeah, and then speed trace gets away from me. Even though I was working on it, my transition from left back to right for turn 4, hair too late again, but it was better. So as always, I'm just going to keep working on it. Also, I could do a better job of keeping the bike on the left side of the tire to set me up for a better 4, which is a really important turn because it's our probably second fastest trap speed on the track. He's going 105 as it goes into turn 4, and I'm doing 97. Then as I get to the apex, I'm doing 98, he's doing 99. And then I remember, I think my clutch was slipping again because I remember holding the throttle open and it didn't feel like I was going anywhere, but I was going through the revs, if that makes sense. So either my tire was spinning or my clutch was spinning. Pretty sure it was the clutch. And then I get up to a top speed of 103, he gets to 106, and he brakes later than I do. But this is significantly better than what I was doing. So from the apex of turn 1 to the apex of turn 5 is about, I have it written down, it's about 0.5 seconds. So from the difference, if you look at the time compare bar, if I can get my mouse to work, from here to there, yeah, that's about 0.5 seconds. Now let's go to 6 to 7, actually let's just do 5 to 8. Yeah, so exiting out of 5, I had slightly better drive, and then going in, I scrubbed less speed. But like I said, he's on somebody else's bike. Can't fault him for that. I had so much more feeling. I think was consistently hitting better, more consistent lean angles in every turn, especially my lefts, which I'm better at. And as you can see, the blue line, my slow speed is 59, his is 56. Looks like he picked up and then rolled off for a second. He might have been passing somebody. I'm sure if he was on his own bike or had more practice, he would have as much, if not more, than me. Then I was grabbing a downshift. I always grab a downshift. Ooh, let me back up. As far as shifts, going into 1, I go to second gear. Coming out, I go up to 4th before I hit here, so I don't have to shift as I'm transitioning from right to left. And then coming out of 3, I grab another. So I go up to 4th and up to 5th here. And then right around here, I'm getting close to red line. I think I was hitting it with my clutch slipping. And then going into turn 5, I go back to 4th. Going into turn 6, I go back to 3rd, which I wasn't doing previously, but it was giving me a bad drive out of 6. So instead of getting up to whatever I got to here, 82, I was only getting to maybe 74, and that's the easiest time to get back. So I was grabbing a shift there, and it worked because I got up to 82, and then going into the bowl, rolled off a little bit earlier than him, and my transition was late, which caused me to have to roll off even more, and it also made me start going slightly wide. So I did the push out and pull back in method instead of the push to the outside of the track and then use the brakes to pull you back into the chicane method, which I don't normally do. Normally I like to kind of take a big arc and then just roll around maybe mid-track to close to the curbing, and then when I get to the chicane I brake and it pulls me back in. But now I have a consistent brake marker. It's just one of the tire marks on the track. I think I can push it deeper. As you can see, I brake here, he brakes here, and then my slow point is earlier, so like I said, I overcorrected a little bit and accelerate away from him, but then he gets to a higher top speed and he brakes later. So in total, even with me blowing this section, I found a little bit of time, but still have, compared to him, losing 0.648 seconds from the apex of 6 to the apex of 8. So I'm going to focus on that when I go there next year, just like I did this year, because I'm just improving the same things. I'm not really doing anything new or groundbreaking. And then from the apex of 10 to 1. Let's look at that. I broke about the same as him going into 10, which is good. Feels good. I wait for the bike to get to the left side of the tire and brake. That's the way NCBike is set up. You're not really doing it on a slow bike. You're not doing a ton of braking straight up and down. A lot of it's, you're not even touching the brakes until you're almost at, like, let's say 10 to 20% lean angle. So I get to about full pressure around here. Don't brake quite as hard as him. And just roll that speed in. Then I go to pick up the throttle and I lose the rear, which really messed up this lap. If I compare this segment from my previous lap and say I make my finish line here, it would have been a 30.8. But that's for next year. I can't claim that. So coming out, lost time, even though my slow point was at the right time or earlier. I lost the rear and had to gather it back up. But going into turn 11, I'm ahead of him by about 0.1 seconds, and that's just because I get the bike on the side of the tire with the throttle still open and continue to accelerate while he's slowing down. But I slowed down too much, and more importantly, too late, and he is accelerating away from me because my slow point is too late. So once again, I'm just working on the exact same things from last year, but I just got to do them better. But overall, pretty good, really good 2025. Got into Azra. No crashes, with the exception of a quick shifter and my clutch going out this last day of the year. No mechanicals. Goals for next year: hit a 30 at NCBike, but long-term goal would be a 29, probably a high 29. Right now, my ideal lap time is a mid 30 at NCBike, and then next year I'll be planning to compete in Azra as an expert. At CMP, I would like to do a sub 145 VAR, get sub 39. I think it's doable. Like I tell people, I'll never complain about the power of my SV until I can at least do the times of the fast kids on 400s, and at VAR they are doing, I want to say, like 36s to 38s. At least the last time they were there was Moto America. I'm not sure what the Azra kids were doing. And then Summit, I went for the first time and only did one race and saw the track that morning, but I did think I did a 126. Does that sound right? No, 124.6. And then NJMP, planning to go to NJMP for the first time, and I'll take what I can get. But yeah, hope this helps. If you want me to do this for you or have any questions, drop a comment or shoot me an email at Weight Transfer Performance. And like I say in every video, if you're struggling or trying to feel like you're not really accomplishing anything, highly recommend getting an AIM Solo 2 and learning to delve into your own data and essentially self-coach yourself. Because all of 2023, I just kind of floundered. And every track day I would go and grit my teeth harder and feel like I was going faster, and then the lap times would do literally nothing. They would stay the same, and I would put in more effort. And then early 2024, I started playing with data, and pretty much every weekend at my home track of NCBike, I was finding a second or two, and I went from a 36.5 being my best in 2022 to the end of 2024. My best was the 32.6. Yeah, like I said, drop me comments, follow me on Instagram, shoot me an email if you need help. Thank you.